All right, looks like we are good. Hey, travelers, Mag and I here on day 284 of our trip around the United States. Aichan is exhausted because we did a little test today to see what her capabilities are, which we'll discuss in a little bit here. First and foremost, before I get anywhere else in what we want to talk about tonight, I want to let you guys know that Aichan is A-OK. She was a little rough there for a while, but as of the last few days, she's been back at 100%. She's eating just fine. She's drinking just fine. She's able to get out and walk and move around. And she's alert and attentive and very interested in what's going on around her, which she wasn't for a bit there. We were coming through Kansas, and about the time we hit the southeast corner of the state, she started going downhill. The first day, she just didn't want to eat, which isn't really all that uncommon for her. She sometimes is really picky about her food or just chooses not to eat. On the second day, I was a little more worried. She doesn't normally skip 2 days in a row. And on the third day, she didn't really even want to get up, eat food, drink water, do anything. We made an vet appointment and we were there. Once we got to the vet, we ran pretty much every test on her, and she came back with a clean bill of health. There was no parasitic type infections, toxins. She didn't have any kind of temperature. They weren't seeing anything in her lungs, yet she didn't want to move around. She didn't want to eat. She didn't want to drink, and she was having a lot of problems breathing. Just listening to her at night, she was laying on her side and struggling for air. And I was pretty worried there. So they did the Hail Mary play on medicine, which is do no harm, but let's go ahead and attack anything that the problem possibly could be. So we put her on a bunch of different stuff, and slowly, ever so slowly, we got her to eat a little bit at a time, drink a little bit. I grilled some steaks up, walked the smell over to her, got the appetite going. Even then, it took hours at a time to be able to get her to eat. And then kind of all at once, she started turning around and getting her energy back and wanting to be active again. And during that time that she was down and out and not doing well, we significantly curtailed our days. We were waking up much later than normal and getting started on the road and immediately booking between hotels for each point that we were. And so the objective of the day was to get to a hotel well before dark so that Aichan could sleep. We did the county targets that we needed to at a bare minimum, parked the car strategically so she'd be able to see me at all times. And we just continued to hop from hotel to hotel so she could get lots of rest and I could take a lot of time to work with her every night. And she bounced back by the time we got really coming back around into Colorado. In the time she was down and out, we flew all the way to the south end of Kansas, south end of Colorado, and the southeast corner of Utah. And it wasn't until we came back around out of that southeast corner of Utah that she was kind of back to full strength. Even so, she really doesn't want to hike a lot. She's great with stops where we get out. We put her out near the car. She likes to wander around and get the smells. But as soon as I put a leash on her, it becomes a time commitment. And for her, it becomes a, how far are we going? Even now, she's kind of struggling to get a lot of distance in. Today was the first time we really had to take on a hike, which was the Utah County and DeLorme Challenge Finals, both of which require a few miles of hiking. I knew that even with her at 100%, it was probably going to be quite a bit. So I blocked off the whole day just for those two things, and we went out and did it, and it took all day to do it. We move about 1 mile an hour, lots of breaks, lots of stop for water, and kind of just take our time if we have to take the trail. But the test today kind of showed that she's not where we were before. She's not able to run around all those small towns and as we're collecting shots and doing different stages of things. She's not going to want to be doing long hikes. So we're changing the format of the trip a little bit from here moving forward. Some of that's with the dog, some of it's with other reasoning, but definitely because of the changes we've made to how we're doing the geocaching, we will have to make changes on the trip. I just want to step back for a moment, though, and before we discuss the future of how we're going to do this thing, think about what Aichan and I have done over the last 9 months. For 9 months straight, consecutively, we were out there on the trails, executing the plan, pretty much exactly as it was designed. We were doing several miles a day at a minimum, just putting on with all the small stops while we were getting around and shooting. And, and we have done some pretty incredible things. Starting off from our very first day in New York, we did a 32 stage multi, working our way all the way around Central Park through the bridges and the arches. And I was ready to backpack Ai-chan and carry her along with me. And she showed me that even though she's coming up on 15 years old, she's good. She can do this. And she hiked the whole thing and she continued on the journey straight from there as well. Once we got out of New York, we went ahead and made our way into Massachusetts. And there, actually, before that, we went through Connecticut, but we were only there a couple of days because they reorganized the counties and we had to get some of the new ones. Then we went into Massachusetts. We got to visit some amazing places like Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, and we attended our first event while we were on the road, hosted by CMAG, their number 101 event by Four Swans Tea. And we got a lot of people out there to come enjoy ice cream, meet this amazing dog, and help us finish off Massachusetts because it's one of those odd county challenges that has little extra rules. And one of those is you have to have attended an event in the state to count it. So it's a perfect way to do so. Once we finished up in Massachusetts, we went up and picked up Skeletor 10 and we took on Maine and some of the loneliest roads we have seen anywhere in the country in that northwest corner of the state. Those are something else out there. After that, we went through Acadia National Park, took the ferry out to Vinyl Haven, and wrapped up the state DeLorme and county challenges in their entirety. Even though we'd already done quite a bit in Maine beforehand, I designed that portion of the trip so that we could get all the pages for Skeletor 10. So we saw the whole thing while we were there. In the same day that we dropped him off, we picked up me mom and we went through the entire state of New York together and dropped down to New Jersey to get the oldest at the gerbil cache as well. Right about the time we finished up with her, day 30 hit, I met up with my friend Chuck and he pushed me to jump out of an airplane. It was a pretty fun day. And if you haven't seen the day 30 video, it's the second time he's talked me out of jumping out of a perfectly lit airplane. And I have a feeling if I see him again, it might be the third time too. Guess we'll see. From New York, we made our way into Pennsylvania, where we did 1,000 steps. Ai-chan got in her doggy backpack for the way up, but she did the entire 1,000 steps on the way down and got some great footage from her perspective as well. That was also where I met one of the first really big challenges when we did DeLorme for Pennsylvania. It's like 7 miles straight out on that trail and 7 miles back. It was way too far to bring Ai-chan, and it was too hot to leave her in the car during the day. So did the next best thing I could think of and got out there at 0 dark early and ran that like a half marathon, got the challenge, and got back to the dog while the sun was coming up. We continued on from there into Pittsburgh, where we met Ames, and she gave us the tour of Pittsburgh. I got to take the day off that day. It wasn't too bad. Once we went into Ohio from Pennsylvania, we met up with our friends Supply and Ivo in Canton. And we got the whirlwind tour through the state before heading on to Indiana and Michigan. Michigan, we got to meet up with quite a bit of people, including Jew Killian in Grand Rapids and Truax Outdoors, who we jumped in a boat together and powered out to Power Island, the oldest geocache in the state. That was quite the adventure. And even though that was all the way back in Michigan, I've got Truax Outdoors in my line of sight coming forward as well. So I don't think that's the last time we'll be seeing him on this trip. From Michigan, we made our way in Wisconsin, and we met up with Vegas Duo, got to do the Eve of Destruction, and tour Oshkosh with them. From there, we went through Minnesota and straight into North Dakota. North Dakota, we met up with Jay and Smith 1081, and we took on the Gadget Caches in Gilby. If you guys haven't seen those videos, those are some of the most creative geocaches I've done anywhere. And it's pretty cool to check out what they've done. There's no spoilers in there, so you won't be able to find out how to solve them yourself, but you'll get a pretty good preview of what you're going to be up against if you can ever make that trek out to Gilby. From there, we dropped into South Dakota, and by day 100, we headed into the Badlands, and that's where I kind of began to standardize my format. Those first 100 days were up and down of how I was trying to get shots arranged, how I wanted to do my video editing. By day 100, I kind of had the feel for what we were doing out there. Then we made our way through the Great Plains in Nebraska, and I had my first flat tire, which we were able to take care of in rapid fashion, thanks to some helpful people out there and great service at the tire shop, and didn't even miss a beat going on schedule. Once we got into Iowa, we toured through the Iowa Rock Series. That is a series of rocks scattered through every county in Iowa that are painted with patriotic symbols all around the rocks. That alone makes touring the entire state quite the gem. But Iowa still had a lot more to offer us, including the High Point, the State Star, and the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk in Riverside. That was such a cool town to visit, and it's a little dot on the map that I would gladly go back and visit again. From there, we dropped into Illinois, and things started to get weird. We toured the amazing town of Orion, one of my favorite places to be, by the way, before heading into Peoria and then swinging back around into Chester at the edge of the state, where we got to learn about Popeye the Sailor Man, one statue at a time, because the entire town has statues all over it dedicated to Popeye. And that makes it a pretty interesting tour. Then we headed into we headed into Kentucky. That was probably one of the only places where I just completely lost my motivation. The west side of the state has some pretty good things to offer, and we particularly enjoyed touring into Hopkinsville as well. That was a great place. But once we got into the east side of Kentucky, it was, I mean, probably 2 or 3 dozen counties worth of nothing but guardrails driving through the mountains. And for somebody who wants to get out and find interesting caching, 3 days worth of guardrails is too much. So the Kentucky Fried Caching video is the only time where you guys can just watch me completely burn out. I was done with the state at that point. But I bounced back because we got into Tennessee. We had some more adventures in store for us, and we met up for Casey and the family for Thanksgiving. And that was a perfect way to wind back down and get ready for the next part of our adventure, where Sam Ferrick flew in and we got to tour through the western side of Tennessee together, as well as the southern side of Missouri and the northern side of Arkansas. Once he was out of the car, we made our way through southern Oklahoma and started to implement our winter plan. I knew at that point we needed to be moving south as quickly as possible so that we weren't going to be in those frigid temperatures up north. And mostly it worked, except for a few select days. One of those was right after Skeletor 10 flew in. We ended up in the panhandle of Texas, and in Dalhart, we got snowed out completely. But we somehow still managed to escape the next day and turned into a great story that I'm sure he'll still be telling years from now as well. Once Skeletor 10 had departed on his way, I went ahead and finished up the rest of what we had in Arkansas and then made our way into Mississippi. And if you haven't seen it, there's one video in particular that's a real favorite of mine. It's the Mississippi Day 172 Legends. When I'm there touring the Vietnam wall that they have there in the town, I came across a Vietnam veteran, William Bramlett, and he told his story about when he was deployed into Vietnam. And I think it just made for such an amazing video to have his story told instead of, you guys hear me all the time, to hear a story from somebody else every now and then isn't too bad of a deal. Once we finished up in Mississippi, we took on the big beast in Texas. And it was thankfully broken down quite a bit by the amazing help of the Texas Geocaching Association. They saw us through many parts of the state and gave us the perfect tours we moved our way through. Not just the Texas Geocaching Association, but other geocachers that we met along the way as well. And we had lots of fun with them. But I wanted to give some particular shout outs to TTO2 for hosting an event that we got to attend while we were there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And in the middle of that, we were meeting with some Marines. Once we made our way down to Houston, Miss Pat helped to host a couple of events there with some locals. And once again, we got another whirlwind tour. Coming into San Antonio, we met up with the tradies and we got to tour the Capitol together. And let's not forget the red carpet rolling out for us when we got into San Antonio, and the two crazy chicks hosted us as we stayed in town. Eventually, all good things must come to an end, and we found our way out of Texas through Big Bend and into southern New Mexico, where what happened in southern New Mexico? Anyway, from there, we made our way into southern Arizona and killed a few days in Las Vegas before heading in to do the Swag Yuma Mega event, which we were particularly excited about because it was a great opportunity to meet lots of geocachers coming in from all over, not even the United States. We met lots of Canadian geocachers and even a few who had come from other overseas destinations too. Once we were done with that, we made our way to the coast of Southern California. Knowing it was winter, we were trying to control for the weather. So the coast is a pretty safe place to be, at least for snow. We met up with Mimong first, and we toured our way through Joshua Tree National Park. And let's not forget Catalina Island, the lovely hike along the island in the beautiful weather that the dog really appreciated being able to enjoy all of it for every minute. And she definitely was talking to us at the end of it, too. From there, we dropped her off in LA and got to attend an event hosted by GSM times two and met up with our friend Juan before heading out of LA, meeting up with Inextricable Fate next. So we were kind of accompanied the whole time we were in California. He saw us all the way out of Death Valley National Park, and we came back around to Vegas, where once again we met up with the skipper and the boss man. And from there, it's pretty much recent history. We came out through northern Arizona, northern New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Kansas, and we got to where we are now. That is, in the last 9 months, day after day, 25 states that Aichan and I have covered completely, county by county, DeLorme page by DeLorme page. And she has been there every step of that way. I know you guys hear me talking a lot, but I do want to remind you that this has, from the very beginning, been a partnership. It's our journey. She may be the silent partner, but it is every much as bit her journey as it has been mine, working our way through the counties. And not just this year either. When we adopted Aichan back in 2010, that was when I began working on the counties. First, we did Florida, then Georgia, South Carolina. She was there every step of the way. And while she didn't do some of the states we had to fly into, she has been through most of those states as we made our way all the way up to 95 together, through Canada and back around, through some other states on the east side of the country too. So I'd say, if I had to take a count so far, I think my dog's been through 43 or 44 states, and probably completely county-wise, at least a good 33 or 34 of them. I'll have to compile some stats on her later. But all that's to say, she's a pretty amazing dog, and I want her to be able to finish this journey that we started together all the way back in 2010 with me now. But we can't do it the same way that we've been approaching it. She can't be taking 2 to 3 miles every single day. Even from what we did today, she is just completely exhausted. And this time of the day, this is normally her awake and what are we doing time, not the leave me alone, I'm taking a nap time. So with her capacity limited the way it is, we're not going to be walking around the cities, taking a ton of shots of murals and statues like we have been. We will when the opportunity presents itself. But for the most part, everything that we're going to be doing is sticking close to the car. That also means that every day her and I were doing, at least a couple miles, and we were trying to get those adventures on the trails, walking on the front and back. We've got to cut most of those as well. We'll still do the hikes when we need to, like we did today for the county and DeLorme challenges. But if the hikes can be avoided, unless she's feeling it, they're probably going to be avoided. And we're also still going to be trying to take our day at a slower pace so that we can start a little later for her and stop a little earlier, because dinner time is still not a long process. In addition to all that, because we're balancing our days this way, we're not going to end up with the same amount of shots every day as we were. And that's okay, because we're getting the relaxed atmosphere that I want for Aichon to have along the way this way. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is compiling several days at a time. We've got about a week left for each state. So we will be doing maybe 2 to 3 videos per state as I group those days together that we're moving through on the road. There are definitely still days on the trip that I know are going to be individual days, especially ones where we're meeting up with friends. But then a lot of those others are going to be compiled together as we're making our way through a lot more park and grabs than we used to. Instead of going out of our way for those really exciting caches that are quarter mile, half mile out, if it's not within a couple hundred feet of the car, it's probably not going to be happening for us. For our next step with Aichan, beyond this, she's going to be retiring. But we were always going to be transitioning away from the daily video format once we were finished with this trip. We're just doing a little earlier than I thought. We're still going to be having a lot of adventures coming up beyond this as well. Once we get to Japan, Inextricable Fate is intending to meet up with us, and we're planning on doing a video series for that, as well as Alaska, still on the shelf, Hawaii, still on the shelf, and the videos that we're going to be having coming out. I'm also not going to be releasing them as religiously as I have been over the last 9 months. We're still going to document the remaining states that we travel through, but I'm going to be spending more of my time each evening making sure that the dog is eating. That's the number one priority. And that requires us to take more time. I've been cooking a lot more recently, and there's nothing fast about that. So I do hope that you guys continue to subscribe to the channel, because that's going to be more important now than ever, knowing that those videos aren't coming every day, and knowing that we're going to have more coming your way even once we finish up our trip around the United States. I still had probably a few more things I want to discuss, but I want to go back and give you guys a chance to answer any questions up to this point. So I'm going to scroll up, see what you guys may have. And if you have any questions about anything I've laid out so far, go ahead and feel free to throw them in the chat. From GSM times 2, he'd asked if we knew what was wrong with Ai-chan. No, we did not know what was wrong with her. And I still don't know what was wrong with her, but I know that she started breathing normally again. She came back to it and she was good. It was something along the way between the 6 or 7 different medications we had her on that helped. Whatever the case may be, she's good. I'm good. From Ron from Mindtip Games, wondering when IXF is going to appear. So his trip with us through Southern California, Death Valley National Park, that's all that he'll be joining us for in this. He's got quite a bit going on. But with a little bit of luck, we'll be seeing quite a bit of him in Japan. Either way, we will be seeing him for the trip that we're planning on doing in Japan in the near future. Beyond that, we'll have to see. He has been my travel buddy for a lot of trips we've done internationally, and I expect that somewhere in the future, that will probably be about the same. So expect to see some more of him in the future. And if we can talk him into it, maybe we can get me mom overseas too. You never know. From Dan Stafer, which oldest am I missing? Are those off the list? Um, I'm not even sure I'm missing any more oldists in the contiguous United States. I know I still need the one in Alaska because I had the choice between going into Anchorage and doing the Cash Cross America, or going into Juneau and doing the oldest. And I opted to do the Cash Cross America because I wanted to finish that series. So I'll circle around on that when we do Alaska. But beside that, I don't believe I need any more in those states. If so, there's maybe 1 or 2 more, but I don't think so. From Catherine Scott, that this is a good question. How is this going to impact our completion date? So not in the way that you might expect. Even with Aichan's condition the way it is, we are not going to be finishing behind schedule. I expect us to be finishing well ahead of schedule. Currently, we are 8 days ahead of schedule. That happened as a result of her not being able to do those hikes. So when you think about it, if we're putting on 2 or 3 miles a day, that's at least an hour or 2 worth of hiking for us every day. And that time's out the window. Not only that, but now I'm trying to do caches that are close to the car instead of the more complicated things. So those go out too. And then we had certain days that were set aside already for us to do complete hiking. We had 2 days in Utah for that. We also had a day in Colorado for that. All of those got cut. So all of those days got put back in our pocket. And moving forward, I expect the same thing to happen. We'll probably be moving faster through our daily itinerary, since we're not going to be doing things that are farther out. We'll be staying much closer to the car on the road, and we'll be cutting some more days too, especially the days where I have us just walking around exploring cities. Those are probably going to be the first things cut, because that's pretty much the last thing that she's going to want to be doing. All that's to say that our targeted completion date originally was June 20th. I expect, the way things are looking now, it'll be early June by the time we're wrapping up. Who knows? We'll see. Some things may delay us. And if so, then we have that extra time in our pocket to work with, and that's great. And then we also for all the time that we gain moving through the things that are quick when we can, we're going to, like we did today, we're going to have to give some of that time back on the hikes that are unavoidable. If Ai-chan wants to hike and take it, I want to let her hike and I want to let her take as long as she wants to do it. And so that's why today made a great test bed. We did the DeLorme Challenge first, which is located pretty much right at the center of Utah. And we got within about 1.5 miles of it. So we really just took our time, and I let the dog stop in the shade, of which there was plenty as we went. And again, we were averaging about 1 mile per hour, which over the last couple of days is, if we're doing anything, is about where it is, about 1 mile per hour, which for us is a quarter to a third of the speed we were moving before when we were hiking. So those take longer. The same thing, we did the county challenge. It was 1 mile out and 1 mile back. That one's located at a confluence where all the degrees come to zero. It's beautiful. Love those. Again, we were moving about 1 mile an hour. She was tired. We had to take lots of breaks along the way. And right now the weather's optimal. It's really cool. There's lots of shade available for us. And we're only getting closer to summer and coming out of the higher elevations of Colorado and Utah. It's going to get warmer. And so those hikes are probably going to be even shorter than that. And if it's anything longer than what we dealt with today, she'll absolutely have to be backpacked, or maybe she'll get into a hotel room while I go run real quick. We'll have to deal with those as we get there. All that comes around to say the same thing, though. I think our schedule is going to be moving forward quicker. We'll have to spend a little bit more time on the absolutely necessary hikes, but those will still not take as much time as we're shoving out with all the normal stuff that we were doing for our daily adventure with her. From FF Skippy, is this affecting your budget? Yes, but that's okay. It costs a lot more with vet, medicine, all that for the dog. But more than that, we've been doing hotels every night. And as soon as she got sick, it was an immediate decision because it's cold out there. Especially in the Colorado mountains, most nights are below freezing. I didn't want her to have to deal with that if she wasn't feeling well. So while normally we've stayed in hotels and I could count them definitely on 2 hands before this, that's out the window. We'll probably stop staying in hotels around the time we get in mid-Wyoming or so if the weather's better. But as long as it's staying in the low 30s, it's not going to be happening. From Dan Staver, is this going to affect your exercise? Yes, it will, unfortunately. I love getting out and hiking the trails. I definitely love putting on several miles a day. So for at least the next couple of months, I'm not going to be getting as much exercise as I would normally. I'll change that once I get to Japan and I'll get back on a regular routine. But right now, dial it down a lot closer to where Ai-chan's level is. Maybe a little higher than what you see right now, but still dial it down a lot closer to her level. From San Marcos Makes, does she do okay in the backpack? I haven't tried the backpack since she's gotten sick. I know that it's always an option for us, but it's kind of my last resort too. She's a prideful dog. She doesn't necessarily want to be in the backpack. She also doesn't want to do the hard hikes. So I know that when worse comes to worse, she'll get in and she'll do it. But that's kind of the plan B for both of us. And that's why we have it as the plan B measure. From Ron from Mind Tip Games, are you replanning your page and county targets on the road? No, because when I initially put this plan together, I assessed all of the risks in it, and one of those was her health. And it was a significant risk because she's darn near 16 now. So I'd always kind of designed it with the big picture in mind of the daily series, and if Ai-chan's in perfect condition, then we can execute exactly as planned. But if we can't and we have to condense, the plan's already designed for that. So I have area segments identified where it's like edge of page, edge of page, edge of county, and I know in the in-between section what I can work with in each of those areas. So that's just kind of chain count targeting. Instead of looking for those ones that are awesome, but they're maybe half-mile hike, I'm looking for the ones that are right outside the road that might be decent, but I can't guarantee those as I could before, since we're not willing to do as much distance. But there's definitely no replanning required. It's just going to be condensing. It's going to be cuts, 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 cuts. And if you've seen, so for example here, let's just pull out a page of the last few days I've done here. So you look at anything with a line through it as a cut. This whole section right here, that's a whole day we cut out of the schedule. And pretty much everything you see here, I cut way more than half of it. That's what most of the days looked like. As opposed to before that, where we were doing most, but not all the targets each day. Now we're doing very few of them. My average find count, I think before was probably close to 30 a day. I think we're down now close to 15 to 20. We're still making it happen, but I'm a lot more comfortable with those one and dones if the one that's available for us is kind of roadside, whereas the other two, as we were coming through the mountains of Colorado, might have been located within 3 or 4 feet of snow. One cache. It's got my name on a log. Let's get out of here. From GSM times 2. I am still not going to be doing Geo Woodstock in the Flagstaff, unfortunately. My goal remains exactly where it is. We're on mission. We are going to finish the counties and the pages, and we're going to be documenting the beautiful places we see along the way. But if I end up being able to finish early, I still have family on the West Coast that I'll be able to drop in on and see with that extra time. So it certainly won't be wasted. It'll go to good use. And I don't want to pad our schedule with anything additional beyond what we have because I do want to see completely to the end of this one way or the other. From Ron with Mind Tip Games. Yes, we will be doing more guardrails now. That is affirmative. We've also been doing more lampposts. All of these are reasons why I don't want to be doing a daily video series now. Because where we could definitely guarantee all the seen places, sites, and awesome geocaches, I'm not going to be giving you guys 5 to 10 minutes of footage worth of lamp skirts and guardrails if that's what we're doing to make sure we're getting our county and page targets. Not going to happen. But that's also one of the great things about this game is there's geocaches out there for all kinds. If you're the kind of person that wants to go and take on a massive adventure rock climb, which sounds pretty good, and go out and find a geocache that takes you all day to go do, you can do that. If you're mobility limited and you want to go out and find some easier geocaches and keep yourself moving that, you can do that too. And there's pretty much everything between the two in the game, depending on what you want to do. And that's what I like about it. We had our initial plan. We had all the stuff I love to do and the stuff she loves to do. And now we've got our contingency plan where we still have our county and page targets. And if they're close enough to roadside, some cool stuff along the way too. And I know, having looked over our schedule, every few days compressed together will offer that to us with the way we've been doing it. The last couple of weeks have been a good test run to see how that works. And when I begin releasing videos again, we'll be starting with the northeast corner of Utah. That's where we came in a few days ago, where Ai-chan was feeling just fine. And that will cover us through the stretch we're on right now and all the way around the northwest corner of Utah as well. I'm meeting up with a friend of mine coming up in a few days in Salt Lake City, so that I expect that to be a separate video, and so on and so forth. Colorado is pretty much going to be the lost days of this journey. I was making it through those mountains as quickly, as fast as I could to get from one hotel to the next, and the thought of picking up the camera most days was beyond me. So that's definitely not going to be happening. From Dan Stever, I want to see more Walmart parking lots. I've done a good job of cutting those out too. So the funny thing is, I don't know if it's noticeable for people who've been caching their communities, but as a whole, going across the US, I definitely have noticed that Walmart is not very geocache friendly. Everywhere that I've seen in Walmart parking lots that had geocaches in it, they've been putting those big yellow guards on, and they really haven't been friendly to geocaches at all. So don't expect to make a lot of finds in Walmart parking lots these days. It's just a good place to lay down and go to sleep for a minute. So I'm not really looking to pad the time on this. I kind of ran through everything I want to with you guys. The daily video series, that format's done. We're definitely going to be moving into a few days at a time, compressing them and sending them out as we get there. But my focus will remain on ensuring that Aichan and I can enjoy the last 2 months of this journey. And that means that both of us are going to be taking things a lot easier over the next couple of months than we have been over the last 9. Rest assured, though, we are not going to let this mission go. She's on it. She's here with me. I'm here, and we're doing this thing. I'm going to give a chance out there for any last questions that you guys may have. And if there's no further questions, when I close this thing out, I definitely appreciate you guys all tuning in to join us tonight, and all the warm, positive thoughts for Aichan while she wasn't feeling well. I want to thank each and every one of you for those. It was pretty rough there for a few days. I was definitely losing my hope that Aichan was going to pull through there, and it was nice to know that there were so many people out there who, wanted to see her get better and wanted to see more of her on camera, and me, of course, too. From GSM times 2, would you consider adding some adventure labs to your days? I've looked at it, and I do want to add some to my days anyway, just for the fact that while me mom was with me, she was reading out various statistics that either we've both qualified on or really close to, and one of those was 1,000 adventure labs. I'm pretty close to that now, so I would like to pursue that, but it leads to the same thing where I am with taking shots around small cities as well. As soon as I put the leash on Aichan, it becomes an endeavor. We're going to be moving very slowly from spot to spot. So if it's somewhere where I can pull up at, get out, get an answer or two right inside the car, that's great. If I've got to do like the whole walk around the park thing, unless she's feeling up for it, not going to happen. And then it's a time commitment. And I'm only getting so many of those per day as well, because she gets tired pretty easily and wants to go back to sleep after that. Again, taking that easy pace. We'll see though, and I do want to hit that 1,000. All right, I think that closed out all the questions. Again, thank you guys for joining us. We'll have our first Utah videos out in a few days here, and then after that, remember, stay subscribed, because we will continue to document this adventure across the United States, and eventually, all those videos are going to get out. They just may not do so on the same aggressive timeline that we've had up until now. So thank you guys for joining us. Like this video, subscribe, stay tuned for daily updates, or nope, subscribe, stay tuned for updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.